Hey, everyone, and welcome to episode number 1 of my new podcast, CNY Conversations. The purpose of this podcast is to have conversations all about Central New York. And it could be current events, it could be sports, it could be some of our local leaders, some of our local business owners, all with the purpose of sitting down and having conversations about the happenings and the great things that happen in Syracuse and Central New York. My mission in this podcast is have a positive outlet to have positive conversations about everything Central New York. And again, it could be everything from the Syracuse Orange all the way to a small business owner that's trying to scale their business. A lot of what I'll talk about in episodes of CNY Conversations is maybe stuff that's in the headlines, which is the purpose of today. Also going to be inviting any guests on that are from and native of Syracuse and Central New York in order to have conversations and get their thoughts on some of the things that occur around the area. So this idea came from conversations with some colleagues and friends that I'm hoping to partner up with and expand and scale this podcast that's very specific to Syracuse and Central New York, and get some great ideas on how we can make the most valuable content for those of us living in the local area. So today I wanted to go through some of the latest news stories that I saw and just touch on them a little bit. One of the ones that I noticed in the Syracuse.com email that I get every day was about Adam Weitzman. And Adam, the news topic was about that he owns a college that he's trying to sell for $6 million. It's a college campus in Johnson City that he bought in 2019, Davis College. And, he is listing it on the market for $6 million in order to try to get an investor to develop the property. The reason I bring that up is I had a conversation just the other day about the Micron development in Clay and the outlook for that development. And up to the last week or two, I've been advising people, especially in the real estate space, to tread cautiously. It's a 10-year plan to build this development, and they're really not expected to start developing for another 2 to 3 years. Well, just in the last week or two, Adam Weitzman and some investors bought an old golf course within a number of miles of Micron that they plan on developing into residential housing. And, we're very short on residential housing, especially new builds here in the local area. But that was really a green flag for me, especially as a real estate agent. The reason it's a green flag for me is that if Adam, in knowing all of his investments and the savvy business owner that he is, and I'm not trying to put words in his mouth or anything. It's just being on the outside looking in. Watching Adam's content and some of the investments that he makes. If he's investing in property to build residential community in the area or within a short distance of the Micron plant, it must be something that will develop over the next couple, 2-3 years. And it's something to keep an eye on. So if you are considering real estate transactions based on the Micron development, do your due diligence. And it could be residential or commercial, but do your due diligence and make sure you're making a sound investment. And that's coming from the real estate. Put on my real estate agent cap. That's where that's coming from. So what else do we have in the news headlines that I saw? Switching to sports. Judah Mintz, the Syracuse University basketball young man that was a guard last year, is dipping his toes in the NBA draft. I think Judah, my personal opinion of watching SU basketball all year is Judah needs a couple, 2-3 years to work on his game to mature a lot. If the last game of last year, he really showed his age and showed some immaturity in how he ended the game. Ripping off his jersey or whatever it was. But Judah, I think, could stand a couple, 2-3 years in college before he dips his toes in the NBA. there's not many Syracuse University basketball players that go on to the NBA and are successful. And to play in the NBA from watching sports for many years is to play in the NBA. You have the certain size, certain stature, certain game of play, and I don't think Jude is it. So the attractions there to big contracts and be able to play at the professional level, but you have to be prepared. You're an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid. It's difficult to navigate those professional leagues, and it doesn't matter what sport it is. And you really need some guidance, and you need that maturity level to be able to set yourself up for success in those areas. So what else is going on here in Syracuse? One of the things I saw yesterday was that Syracuse University is raising its tuition again. That always makes me shake my head, and this can be controversial, but it's expensive enough to go to college, and Syracuse University you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get an education from Syracuse University that you could probably spend a half or three quarters of that money and go to another college and get the same education. It's reputable, and having the Syracuse University stamp on your degree. But you know what? I think a lot of people have realized that, and I've been saying this for quite some time, that unless you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, a teacher, start thinking about, do I really need to spend that money to go to college? If you're going to get a degree in poli-sci or liberal arts, why spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for a degree that you may or may not use? There's a lot more weight put on life experience and getting experience in the world. And, it really depends on your path if you need to make that investment in a college degree. So, just here's another one that close to my heart with real estate is that there's a huge housing development proposed for the farmland near Syracuse. I'm familiar with this. And so there's an Albany-based builder that is going to develop the land for large homes. That's interesting. And I know from experience, like the new builds used to take 3, 4, 5 months to build, probably 5 years ago, 7 years ago. Now you're looking at 12 months, maybe up to a year for a new build because of construction slow ups, and construction prices are very, very high, which will reflect in the listing price of the new build homes that are created. The interesting part about new builds is, like, I heard this the other day, like there's 70% waste in construction material in a new build. That's pretty profound, and that I'm sure is also reflected in whatever the list price ends up being. So, there's a lot of demand for homes. I listed a home a couple of weeks ago, and small Cape, just outside the village of Liverpool, beautiful home, well taken care of, 60 some odd showings in 3 days, 5 cash offers that went well over list price. And it just is amazing how the real estate market, just even with mortgage rates the way they are, and people are finding a way to get cash. They're cashing out equity in their current homes. They're getting with private lenders to be able to have cash to go in and swoop up these homes, so they don't have to compete with people that are depending on mortgage financing in order to purchase a home. It's a very, very complicated, complex market, and it takes a lot to navigate. So what else do we have here in Syracuse and Central New York? Yeah, let's see here. Lacrosse season's done. The college kids have graduated. SU had their graduation last weekend, which always makes me kind of laugh because it's always on Mother's Day. Even when I worked at the Carrier Dome as an EMT, and it always was astounding to me that they seem to plan or always schedule graduation in or about Mother's Day. It's a very, interesting way to spend time with your mom when you graduate from college, I suppose. Oh yes, interest rates on student loans. Student loans are going to kick back in, student loan payments. Interest rates are much higher because of the financial markets. best of luck to anybody that has a student loan that's been in forbearance for quite some time. So it says here that the Syracuse University women's lacrosse team is going to play James Madison in the NCAA tournament, which is pretty awesome. They've had such a great year. A little bit of disappointment at the end of the year, but very great year. And it's fun to watch the lacrosse teams really be successful here from Syracuse University. So it's always a fun game to watch. I was just seeing here that there's 2 upstate New York campgrounds named among the best in the Northeast. Let's see, the dirt.com dirt sheet. It's ranked Keuka Lake State Park as one of the, and I've been there. I've camped there. Keuka Lake is a beautiful area right there in wine country in the Finger Lakes. So I'm not surprised that's on the list. Syracuse has a lot going for it, and we kind of knock it all the time, especially because of the weather. But especially this time of year, there's a lot going on. Concert season will start ramping up at the AMP, and that's always for a project that was well scrutinized. The AMP has really come a long way, and has scheduled these musical acts that everything from country to hard rock, classic rock. What did I see? George Thorogood is going to play a concert here in Syracuse, and I don't know how old. I should have looked up how old he is, but the fact that George Thorogood is still playing concerts is just pretty outstanding. You have some of these classic rock acts that just keep at it. You think of Motley Crue, that's probably had 3 different retirement tours, and I think they're on their 4th one here this year. Them and Poison and Def Leppard. They keep rocking out, but at some point, man, when do you put down the drumsticks and the microphone and just call it a day? And I always joke with my family, talk about how many months we're away from the Great New York State Fair, and as of next week, we'll be 3 months from the Great New York State Fair. Easy for me to say, and we don't want to think about that, because when the New York State Fair comes around, that's the end of summer for Syracuse, and kids will be getting ready to go back to school by then. But 3 months will go by like that. Summer goes by like that. We're hitting Memorial Day in a week or so from now, and next thing you know, it'll be 4th of July, and we'll cruise on to the Great New York State Fair. But summers, we always try to pack in as much as we can when the weather is good, because we enjoy well, it used to be 6 months worth of winter, but the last 3 winters, they seem to not. Winter doesn't really start until like January. The awful part is if it lasts into May, like 2020. Nothing like being locked down in a pandemic and have it snow on Mother's Day. That was phenomenal. But having those outdoor activities, being able to get outside and enjoy the Finger Lakes and Oneida Lake, and go boating and camping and fishing, and enjoy the Syracuse Mets, which that's probably number one and one of the things I want to get to this year, because I don't think we had, my family and I were able to enjoy a baseball game, and I watch 100 or 150 of the 162 Yankee games as much as I can, or at least listen to them. But here in Central New York, having the Mets affiliation or affiliate team, AAA team here is really exciting. And, I plan on taking my family to a game or two to see the Syracuse Mets play. And I saw a news clip, a sports clip the other day, that Gary Sanchez, who used to be the catcher for the New York Yankees, had a hard fall literally with his career, and he just wasn't cutting it as a catcher for the New York Yankees. Got traded away, played in Minnesota, ended up in San Francisco. He wasn't having a lot of success again. I think a lot that goes on with Gary Sanchez is attitude and mindset, but an injury, of course. But Gary was looking at getting demoted down to AAA for San Francisco, and turned down their AAA offer to go play, and ultimately turned around and signed a AAA deal with the New York Mets. So I got to imagine he's here playing, or at least sitting the bench here in Syracuse. So, I want to go catch a game and see what his play is like these days, based on his previous outings as the catcher for the New York Yankees. Gary, he just one of those players that got to the major leagues and really just didn't have a whole lot of success. It's fun to go to the Syracuse Mets games or any of the Syracuse baseball games of the past because you get to see some of these players that may be in a rehab stint, or maybe some of the up and coming players. You look at Anthony Volpe of the New York Yankees that has really had a breakout year, and it would have been nice. And I probably didn't realize it when I went to see some of the Syracuse Mets when Scranton came to town. Some of the New York Yankee players of the future. That's one thing I plan on doing, start paying more attention to those AAA teams to see who are the young players of the future and how are they going to shape Major League Baseball moving forward. Switching gears, I saw not too long ago that the Taste of Syracuse is making a return again this year. I went to the Taste of Syracuse, and it was before 2020, so it had been 2018, 2019. My wife and I went to the Taste of Syracuse to check it out, see what kind of food was there. Wasn't all that impressed. Really, the most of the food wasn't more than, food truck, and it was actually probably lesser quality in the food truck. Bar food, fried food. For the amount of money you paid, we ended up walking away and going down to Kitty Hoynes to have some drinks and some more food. But hopefully they've improved it. I know the entertainment of the past used to be super good. One of the things I need to look up is the Chicken Wing Festival. I think that occurred already in the Inner Harbor. I'm not sure when that was, but it was one of those things that I'd like to get back to doing. Some of these local festivals. I know Greek Fest is coming up. That's always a huge hit. Greek Festival in DeWitt. So that's usually nothing better than some good Greek food. But you have these different festivals coming up. I know Jazz Fest will be coming up this summer. That's another show something I'd like to take in. Huge jazz fan of the past. But drop a comment. Let me know what kind of festivals or organized events you're going to be going to here in Central New York, what kind of camping you're going to do this summer, your summer activities. I'd love to share these with the audience. The purpose of this podcast, again, is to highlight some of the great things in Syracuse, Central New York, talk about news topics, and ultimately share information. So any kind of topics you would like to, as we build this community through this podcast, I'd be happy to have you on the podcast if something you want to talk about, something you want to highlight here in the local area. But I'd like to build community, build some sponsorship of the podcast in order to really develop a following and have these great conversations, again, positive conversations about the great things here in Syracuse and Central New York. Sound like a broken record, but that's my purpose. But that's, why I'm plugging that in there. So as I start recording these podcasts and putting them out, again, I'll be bringing people on. But the only way I'm going to grow this community is by participation. So I'd appreciate it if you share it, like it, subscribe to it, comment, all the good stuff that we expect within social media. And there will be future podcasts to come. But this is a short 20-minute podcast to kick it off, to talk about episode number 1 of CNY Conversations. It's a direct, it's similar but different from my previous podcast that I was running for 3 years, matter of fact. So once again, I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Have a great day.